We also have Quantum and Woody. Again, one that I never read back in the 90s. This one, I like to say, was better than I expected it to be. I was never much a one for buddy comedies. I didn't even read the original Archer and Armstrong back in the 90s. It never really did much for me, or I was never attracted to it. I've read the new Archer and Armstrong. I love it. Quantum and Woody is pretty darn good. I like it better than I expected to, I guess, is the rating I would give it. It's not as good as Harbinger. It's not as good as a few of the others. But it's solid for what it is, what it does. It tells a good story, and the characters are solid. So, Shadow Man, another one that has had some rough patches here and there. I would say that the intentions of the book were great. Had high hopes for where Justin Jordan was going with it early on, and if ever they do any miniseries or anything focusing on Master Dark or Sandria Dark, I hope he's the one writing it, because those were the best issues that he did, were focusing on the villains. The history of the character, the mythology of the world surrounding the Darks and the Shadow Man, I loved where he was going with it. If there had been more connection to Jack as a character, as a person, outside of and separate from the Shadow Man, it would have been better. I would have cared more. So, sadly, with where that went, he was replaced. They brought on a new creative team, and Peter Milligan is working on the new Shadow Man stories, and doing okay so far. We'll see how it goes. It's only a couple issues in, but supposedly he has enough material and ideas for story-wise for a year to year and a half, so I'm waiting to see how that goes. But liking it so far. Unity, I'm going to save for just a little bit. X-O-Men of War. This was the first original Valiant series that I hooked up with. This is what brought me to Valiant in the old days. And what Robert Venditti has done with the concept, with the character, has been every bit as good or better than the sum total of the 60-some issues in the 90s. Even though it's only into, issue 20, 21 so far. The character is better. He's not a dumb brute. He's not a savage. He's not an idiot. He's he was uneducated. He was uncivilized, but not an imbecile. So he wasn't taking a caveman, not taking Fred Flintstone and putting him in advanced armor. It's more like taking Braveheart or the main character from Gladiator and giving them the armor. He's someone that's very smart for his time. He knows his world and is used to that. It's just the conventions of the world are different now. And granted, he's not very wise, we'll say, but he's got brains. He can figure things out pretty well. And that has led up to the whole storyline, which led into Unity, with him finally bringing back his people. And that is part of what made the character in the series, even though I love Dysart's work on Harbinger probably best as far as the storytelling aspect goes, I almost have to give XO the best series. The character has been so consistent throughout. If you look back at the early episodes, the early issues of what he wanted a homeland for his people. He wanted to, fight off the people that were enslaving and hurting his people, and make them safe. It came full circle around through all of the issues, through all of Planet Death, and finally came back to where he had some of his people and had a homeland and made a homeland for them back in what was Dacia for him, which is now Romania. The only problem with that was the modern world wasn't going to put up with that. He was a king without a kingdom. They weren't going to allow him to just plunk down and claim something, which led into the Unity saga, the first arc, where Toyo Harada, the Eternal Warrior, Ninjak, and Livewire went up against him to stop that invasion, to take the armor from him, because he was a weapon of mass destruction that was going to cause nuclear war. And by the end of that arc, that issue is apparently going to be resolved, and he may be the one joining up the Unity team from what it looks like, in place of Harada, who everyone realizes has been manipulating the situation. So to see the whole storyline come full circle has been great. The character is wonderful. Eric, some of the best moments have been, the combat is great. The fighting scenes are great. There's constant amusement with the different ways that kills are done, from the gut grenade to the oh goodness, what was it? Ghost Rider Collider, I believe it was finally dubbed, in a recent issue in Unity #1. One of the kills. Those that know of it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Those that don't, go read Unity #1, find out about it. It's hilarious. But some of the best moments are some of the quietest ones. When I think of the best parts of the series here and there, I think it was issue #5, after he had gotten back to modern day, landed in Italy, and dealt with some Air Force, and flew away to the jungle in South America, and was basically taking off the armor for the first time since he had been back on Earth, and some of the scenes of him remembering, his family, his wife, the poignancy of the memories was strong. Very silent, still images that were done in the artwork. When he's sitting alone in the field in Italy, after having dug up the remainder of one of the swords that he held hundreds of years ago before he was kidnapped by the Vine, that moment was very powerful. A few issues later, when he was battling Ninjak, and Ninjak had poisoned him while he was out of the armor, and he started succumbing to the poison and dropping unconscious. And as he was falling over unconscious, the armor peeled off of him and was going into its ball form, and as it was starting to close up, the helmet of the armor was pulling away from his outstretched hand, and it was like the visor was pointed at it and looking at him, like waiting for him to give a command, like to tell it to come back. It conveyed so much emotion, that the armor was really like, come on, don't let me down. Give me the order. Give me the word. I'll come back. I'll kick his butt for you. And the emotion that it conveyed in that, with it pulling back and just kind of watching him, and then realizing, no, not going to happen, and it closes up and just floats there. That's good storytelling. That's what I love Valiant Comics for. You can probably hear in my voice that I'm getting a little bit choked up. I'm not going to go teary-eyed on you, I promise, but thinking about those moments, those are what make it for me. That's what makes Valiant special. And I don't read a lot of other comics these days. It's been a little bit. I've read some Marvel in recent years. I've seen some DC stuff here and there. So I can't really say that I read a lot of Marvel currently and a lot of DC to be able to compare it to. But what I have read, I would put Valiant Comics head and shoulders above most of it. Yes, there are some low points in the Valiant comics but even those are going to be on par with most other things out there in comics these days. If you're not reading Valiant yet, give them a shot. They have wonderful trade paperbacks. The first volumes of all their trades are pretty cheap, usually under $10, and their deluxe hardcovers you can get on Amazon.com for under $30, and that's usually the first 14 or 15 issues of a series. So far, I think it's only got XO, Man of War, and Harbinger out, but more are coming here in very soon months for Archer and Armstrong, for Bloodshot, for the Harbinger Wars crossover. That's going to be all compiled into one book, so you don't have to jump back and forth between the Harbinger and the Bloodshot and the miniseries. It'll all be put together in one thing. So those are highly recommended if you are going to jump in. If you jump in with some of the recent issues and want to catch up, that's one of the quickest, easiest ways to do so. So I hope you like this. Little trip back in time for me, looking at some of the old Valiant and really seeing how it crosses over, and the reasons remain the same. Why do I love Valiant comics? Wonderful characters with awesome stories told about them. And that's never goes out of style. From the 90s to today, I'll always love a good story, and I look forward to many more good stories coming up with Valiant Comics in the future. From everything coming this summer with the Armor Hunters series, crossover big event with XO Unity, Armor Hunters Harbinger, and Armor Hunters Bloodshot, to the new Rise series starting in May that looks fabulous, especially the artwork by Clayton Crane, all painted for the whole 4-issue arc apparently, is unbelievably good. And with Matt Kent writing it, I can't wait to see what he does with that after his wonderful work in Unity. I look forward to that very much. So that's all I've got for right now. Thank you for watching, and hope that you love Valiant as much as I do. Enjoy.